watching the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for the second half hour of The Factor Uncensored. The horror of honor killings remain a global issue affecting many people around the world. An honor killing happens in some cultures where a woman is usually the victim. They are killed when it's believed they have dishonored or bring shame to their family. Now, according to the United Population Fund, there's an estimated 5,000 honor killings worldwide every year. They happen everywhere, but are extremely common in South Asia and the Middle East. My next guests travel all the way from London, England to share their story. They have created an organization to help put a stop to this gender-based violence called End Honor Killings. Joining us to talk about it, Nina Aouilk and her daughter, Dr. Celeste. Nina, you survived an attempted honor killing, and I read and watched your video, and it was heartbreaking. It was tough. For the viewer who don't know what you went through and your culture, first of all.
So I'm born in England, in Britain, but my culture, my parents, my heritage is from India, North India. I was subjected to a lot of abuse just because I was born a girl. Girls are not wanted, not celebrated. In fact, they saw me as an evil entity, something that was possessed maybe by the devil. So, you know,
and that's when you were born.
When I was born, I wasn't celebrated. It's very traditional for when boys are born for sweets to be handed out for parties, celebrations. But when it's a girl that's born, it's a very solemn affair, and it was no different in my case. Sadly, I was a modern-day slave by the age of 6, kept separate from the family, not allowed to sit and watch telly like my brothers were on the sofa. I was kept in my room, and you know, everything was very different just because I was born a girl.
And when you say you were essentially a slave when you were a kid, what else occurred to you that said, this is not right, I don't want this life?
I've faced a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse by my parents. My mother wasn't friendly or loving towards me. My brothers didn't speak to me. I wasn't part of the family. I was very much an outcast just because of the gender I was born.
And so the abuse, the sexual abuse when you were young,
yeah,
was that at the hands of family members?
Well, what happened was my job was to cook and clean for the family. So when my father had his friends on a Friday or Saturday night, as he would, they would sit and drink, and it was my job to cook for them and clean for them. And on that particular night, I was 14 years old. I'd been doing this for these people that I called uncles, because we don't say their names, we say uncles, but they're not related, and I was doing this from a very young age. So I knew them really well. But when I was 14 and I took in my tray that I used to have to collect the dishes, my father was the first person to rape me, and I was passed from person to person, and there were 7 or 8 men, and I was literally broken, and my childhood was ripped away from me very quickly. That innocent child that I was, my life felt very much like I shouldn't be there anymore. I didn't want to live.
And Dr. Celeste, when you hear what your mother went through, and there's a whole nother story with you arriving here as her daughter, but when you realize what your mother went through as a child, when she showers you with so much love, she wants to protect you with so much love, but when you realize what she went through, your thoughts about that?
I think whenever you hear anybody's gone through something so horrific, you obviously feel hurt, you feel sadness for them. But I think I grew up, thankfully, with lots of love. And I think it's one of those things where people can go one of 2 ways. They can either take all of that negativity and carry it through with them, or they can make a change and say they don't want to carry on in that negative way. They want to have a more positive future and outcome. And thankfully, that's what my mother did.
And when we talk about Celeste, and you shared this online, so this is nothing, and I'm not pushing you, but you had just been a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
And then you went to a friend's house to provide you shelter.
Exactly.
To give you comfort.
Yeah.
That happens to be the man who's Celeste's father.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So
But you weren't with him. You were not dating.
No. It was a friend's boyfriend. When I got to see him, he was an ex-boyfriend. And it didn't happen straight away, it happened after a while, but I turned up on his doorstep because I'd come out of hospital. I'd spent a couple of months in hospital recovering from a broken arm, a broken jaw, in an attempted honour killing. You know, my parents had stamped upon me, they tried to kill me. It was a deliberate, deadly attack on me. I had escaped. I don't know how I did, but I did. And then I turned up at his doorstep and he offered me a place to stay. For me, that was huge. But sadly, he wasn't really somebody with good intentions. And he took me to a party one day. I'd never been to a party, ploughed me with alcohol. I'm thinking it's a soft drink, thinking it tastes very odd. And he raped me. And Celeste is the result of that. But I didn't understand that it was a rape in that sense. I felt any kind of sexual relationship as of a violent nature because that's all I knew. So I didn't question it because I wasn't in the right mindset. I didn't have that self-worth to stand up and understand I didn't deserve that. So to be honest, I was selfish. I wanted somebody to love. I had never had anyone. I was very much alone. And for me, she was saving grace. You know, when I had her, I had never felt so much love. And I promised her I would give her everything I didn't have.
And of course, I've seen you, when you hear your mother, you know your mother's story. And for you to come into her life and you to bring her so much joy after, and I mean, it's from sexual violence, but still, you bring her joy, you bring her light. What is that like?
I think, I mean, the relationship and the bond that we have is very, very strong because of the domestic violence that my mother went through with my father. But I think it's difficult. I think a lot of people struggle when they've been through those situations. And actually, my mother putting her story out there, I've had people contacting myself. Actually, somebody I knew from Texas contacted me and said that she had gone through something similar. And she had a child through rape. And she was sort of saying to me she doesn't know how to tell her daughter and how her daughter might receive that and also how other people receive that. And I say, well, my mother's only shown me anything but love, and as long as you do the same to your daughter, I'm sure that she'll be happy.
And of course, when we come back, we'll ask you how you were able to share this with Dr. Celeste. We'll be back with more Factor in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Tonight we're talking about honor killings around the world. And we have with us Nina Aouilk and her daughter, Dr. Celeste, who are here from England. And of course, we're glad to have you here. Now, when we talk about honor killings, and you said your parents, they tried to kill you, what happened? What caused them to take that action against you?
So an honour killing is normally carried out to protect the honour, the respect of the family. So if the family think you've brought shame upon them, whether you've had a boyfriend out of the culture, whether you've worn something that's enticing to men, whether you have been seen somewhere that you shouldn't be seen, they will kill you because you are bringing shame upon them.
And when we talk about specificity in your case, what happened with you?
So I had left a forced child marriage after 4 years of abuse because I was traded to one of the rapists from that night, one of my father's friends. I was traded for sexual reasons, and I was also given to his wife as a domestic servant. So I was married in a sham forced arranged marriage, but I was kept there as almost a servant, a slave again to them.
And when you left that marriage, then your family proceeded to try and kill you.
I escaped the marriage because I was so unhappy. You know, I'd got to 4 years of abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, and I just couldn't take it. I got to a point, and everybody does in life, where they start to hate themselves. And the only thing I could think of doing was going back home. I romanticised being held by my parents. We all seek the validation of our parents. We want that paternal love, that maternal love. And I'm no different. That's what I wanted. I was 21 years old and very naive.
And Dr. Celeste, could you even imagine anything like that?
No, it's sort of the straightforward answer. And I think one thing that a lot of people sort of come out and say is, you know, if you went through all of that abuse as a child, why would you then go back to the family? And, you know, as my mother said, she sort of romanticised the idea that they were going to welcome her with open arms, and obviously they did the complete opposite. I think it's one of those things when you grow up and you're so conditioned, you grow up in that way, it happens, you know, things happen, and you, in your mind, think that it's normal. It's normal to live in that way. It's normal that you're treated in that way. But it obviously gets to the point where you just have to make change.
Mm-hmm. And for you, when you talk about, so here's the question I have. When did you tell her that she was the product of sexual assault? And how difficult was that for you?
I only admitted the rape as a child, as a 14-year-old child, and how the way her father treated me a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Because you live in a very different kind of mindset. You're very distorted. Your reality is distorted. So you don't use the right terms. You say things like I was forced or I was held against my will, but you don't use the word rape. It's a word that's associated with shame, stigma.
I wouldn't even use it just now.
Yeah, a lot of people won't use that word,
Yeah.
but I'm saying to people that it's not, the shame isn't upon us. If it's happened to us, it's on the person that's done it to us. Their hands are dirty, not ours. We should stand and speak our truth, and we should be proud of ourselves that we've survived such an ordeal. You know, we are not to be held, we shouldn't hold our heads down low. We should hold them up high.
And Dr. Celeste, when you learned that, what was that like, that revelation for you?
I think initially it was shock, because I found out quite late on in life. It wasn't something that I knew about. I knew that obviously my mother had gone through abuse, domestic violence from my father, but I didn't realise that obviously that I was the product of rape. And it does come with that shame. People don't like to use the word. People don't like to think about the fact that it happens, although that, you know, we all know that it does. So I think initially it was just shock and sort of coming to terms with the fact that that was the case. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change who I am. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change the relationship that I have with my mother. It's just one of those things.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment here on The Factor Uncensored. Stay with us. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Our guests are back here with us on The Factor Uncensored, and we're talking about honor killings. We have with us Nina Aouilk and her daughter, Dr. Celeste. And Nina was a victim of an attempted honor killing. Those who are killed by their families, mainly in Asia, South Asia, who bring shame onto their family. And of course, Nina has survived and she lives her life and she's trying to warn people about it. So Nina, obviously that has been your mission in life, your campaign to make sure no one else dies or no other woman dies as a result of an honor killing. Tell us a little bit about that.
So 9 years ago, I became homeless. I escaped an attempted murder on my life. Dr. Celeste was the one that saved my life, and I discovered myself a couple of years later, and I wanted to create 100 messages to the world for my sister. My sister, who is called Julia, was abducted by my father and sold to human traffickers and left there, and I've never been able to find her, even though I've looked for her. Mm-hmm. So I decided I had to do something, because I needed a big sister, she needed a big sister, and I couldn't not do anything. I'd just found my safe place, if I'm being honest, away from all of the abuse and the fear that I lived in. But I knew that on the other side of fear was freedom, and I wanted that for everyone, because I'd found it through self-discovery and self-love. So I have been speaking out for 3 years. I did a TEDx called There Is No Honour in Killing. Mm-hmm. I have then gone on to speak across the world on stages at the UN. We had our first event at this March, and we've just been continually talking about it.
And so, Nora, let's put up the information. And so, Dr. Celeste, how important is this message to you also that your mother is putting out and trying to save lives around the world?
I think it's important because, I mean, since we've started the organisation, we've helped plenty of women and girls around the world. But I also want to point out it's not just women and girls that we help, we also help males as well. We help everybody. And it's an important cause. There are lots of people that are going through this, not just in Asia and South Asia. It happens here in the US, it happens in England.
We had a case right here in Houston.
Exactly, it happens worldwide. So spreading the message and creating the awareness is one thing, but also helping those girls and women and men that may be going through this to escape, so they don't go through what they potentially could do.
All right, we want to thank you guys for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. And once again, that is the website. If you want to get involved, you can put it back up, guys, inhonorkillings.org. And of course, you guys are going from here to Los Angeles, spreading your message. And we thank you for sharing that message here on The Factor Uncensored. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having
and
us.
joining us here and helping others as you continue your mission. We'll be back with more Factor in just a moment.